Stop pricing yourself like a mom and start pricing yourself like a business person.
When you say that, what's the biggest problem or reason why you think moms price themselves lower than a business person?
Anytime that a woman is not taking her expertise and her time into consideration, she is looking at it along the lines of the way a mom would, which is to say she's not accounting for all of the time, effort, and energy that goes into something that she's offering. It makes me think of going to a craft fair and seeing all of these amazing crafts that people have spent hours and hours doing, whether it's sewing, crocheting, painting, and then they price their products at $12 instead of $120. That means they are not taking the fact that they have an expertise in a certain area and that they spent hours of their time doing something. Instead, they are simply looking at what is the cost of the products that I am offering, rather than what is the value of what they have to offer. So one of the first things that you should do is stop thinking of cost and replace that with value. What is the value of what I'm doing? If I have hand painted something, the value of that is much higher than if you just think of, well, I have a canvas here that has got some paint on it. A hand painted item that comes from sweat and blood and experience is worth a heck of a lot more than just something that came out of China on a manufacturing facility. So price yourself according to your value and not cost.
What do you think gets in the way of a mom seeing their true value? Why don't they value themselves higher naturally?
I think it is a mentality of thinking small. We don't think that the things that we are doing are worth very much. If you ask a mom what she's accomplished within a given day, she might say, well, not really anything. I took care of the kids. I did this. I got the house cleaned up. I know it's a mess again. Those sorts of things aren't necessarily rewarded by society today. They're not looking at you keeping a child alive as something that's very valuable. In fact, daycare and childcare is one of the lowest paid professions that you can possibly be in. Sadly, that means that we're not putting real value on people's time when they are taking care of and raising children. And so a mom is coming from a perspective of the things that I'm doing with my time aren't really that valuable because I'm just doing the very basics or the minimum. So it's very hard when women transition into things that do have great value, or they transition themselves into a career. They have a difficult time placing that value back on themselves and thinking that they're worth something because they're so used to feeling like the things that they are doing are not worth anything. They're not worthy of a paycheck. They get very little reward. They get very little praise. You take all of those things out of an equation and suddenly it makes someone feel like what they have to offer is not worth very much.
Do you have a personal experience where you transition from maybe charging just for your time to charging based off value?
Ooh, when I first got into the speaking world, I was so desperate to get on stages and have practice that I was afraid to give any number at all. I didn't even want to say I charged $500 because I was afraid no one would think I was worth $500. After I got some experience and I started getting on stages for very little or no cost at all, which is great practice, by the way, I started working with some mentors and some coaches. And you know what they told me the number one problem with my business was? I was not charging enough. They said no one is going to take you seriously, especially in a corporate world, if you have a very low price tag. Because they see high value and they expect a high price tag to go with it. So I had to change my whole mentality of feeling like I'm not worth it to instead saying, this isn't just an hour of my time. This is 20 years of my experience. This is the value that I can bring in that hour and not simply what is the cost of 1 hour of my time. So the best thing I did for my business was to stop charging little amounts and not to double my fee, not to triple my fee, not even to quadruple my fee, but to almost 10x my fee. And guess what happened when I did that? I started getting on the bigger stages. Because when people saw that there was a high value, they saw a price tag to match, then they started assigning worth to me that I hadn't been assigning to myself.
Do you have one simple tip that someone can use to at least help them increase their prices without being so fearful of doing so?
Well, one simple tip is just to change the way that you think about it in your mind. And instead of saying, what does this cost or what am I worth, say, what is the value of what I have to offer? What is the value of me being able to coach an employee? It's not $65 for the hour of your time. It is thousands of dollars in productivity that employee is going to gain because they have gotten over the mental hurdle in their minds that is holding them back. So the first tip I have to say is change the way that you think about what you have to offer and go from cost to value.